Do they have good coffee where you are?
I've found a few places, yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's easier to find in Australia. You know,
Yeah.
here it's not every place, so you really have to try a couple.
Yeah.
Over there, you can just
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel like coffee. Go down to the next place, and it's pretty decent.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like Macca's has pretty decent coffee, even though it's
Macca's,
Macca's.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Power said there's a lot of drip coffee here, Dana coffee, which I don't mind actually because
Yeah.
it's free refills. But yeah, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
I found when I was in Japan, especially, I was like, I wasn't expecting it to be so hard to find a really good coffee.
mhm.
There was like two places maybe, and all the rest of them, I was like, I can't drink this.
Yeah.
It's not up to my snobby Melbourne standards.
Your flat whites or
Yeah, cappuccinos, lattes. Yeah, there's actually the one really good place. I think it was called Blue Bottle in Shinjuku at the station.
okay.
Man, that was really good actually.
Oh yeah, done a bit of travel. Were you there just on holiday, not working or anything, right?
Yeah, just on holiday, man.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to go there for work though.
If you want to work
I
8
was
days a
talking to
week,
someone actually. What's that?
if you want to work 8 days a week, yeah, go there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're no joke there, man. They're not messing around. Their
I know.
work ethic.
I know there's 7 days in a week, everyone. I was just kidding. Cool. Do you want to make a start now? Just like,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
just get stuck into it. It's already past 3, so let's do this.
There's a bunch of people here. That's awesome.
Yeah, good
Hey,
turnout.
everyone.
Yeah, welcome. Just start off with, I guess, yeah, what you doing?
Introductions?
Know that
Yeah,
jazz?
sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Toole. I know my label says Joe Animates, but that's back from a while ago. I think it's that was like when I was freelancing. When I emailed people, I wanted to have like my business name now. Anyway, I've been an animator for nearly 6 years now, I think. In a mixture of games, movies, and I've done a little bit of TV, web series stuff. I think for the bulk of it, though, I've been doing games, and it's been a little bit of everything. It's been like mobile, console, PC, whatever the the calling happens to be. I'll be doing it. At the moment, I'm working at a place called Infinity Plus 2. They did Puzzle Quest. If anyone ever played Puzzle Quest or Gems of War, which is like a mobile game, service mobile game. They're pretty art-heavy games, but there's like virtually no 3D animation in them. But their new game, which I'm not allowed to talk about, has a lot of 3D animation. So keep your eye out for that. Before Infinity Plus 2, I was at Method. I worked on Jumanji, Peter Rabbit 2, Terminator, and a few other ones that I probably can't talk about. And that was really fun. I was there for about 6 months. We can talk about film versus game a little bit as well if you want at some point. The difference between workflows and hierarchies and what it's like working in video games versus film, and also just like the style, like the expectations and all that sort of stuff is a fair bit to go into there. I could probably talk to a whole presentation on just video games versus movies. Maybe I will. And then before that, I was freelancing, and I freelanced for 2 years, or a year and a half approximately. And I had a really good time freelancing. I worked on, I think I had a grand total of like 16 clients. It was awesome. It was like, I wasn't expecting it to be as profitable as it was. And I would definitely go back, and I'm glad that I've done freelancing. But I think the thing that I struggled most with freelancing was the stress, and not so much the stress from like working a lot. It was more like the stress from having to find the next client, having to like not know when the next paycheck was going to come in. That's something that I knew would happen, but I wasn't expecting it to be so draining. Makes it really hard to enjoy yourself if you're worried about your next client. And even if the current client you have is like 6 months worth of work, you're still like, what's going to happen after that?
So were they
But
international
yeah,
clients or local?
yeah, it was a mix. I actually had
Oh,
a
cool.
Japan client,
Okay.
which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there was one in Helsinki,
Yeah. Right.
one in Japan, and then the rest were actually all Melbourne slash Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a mix of games and apps, and some other stuff. Yeah, sometimes it was just like we need you to rig this thing yesterday, and we need it done really fast. And again, that's just like really simple character stuff.
How did they find you, or did you find
Um,
them?
I usually there would be like I'd have like days where I would just email people.
Mm-hmm.
I would go through. Um, I'd go on Twitter first of all and see like hashtag freelance or like who's hiring basically.
Okay. Cool.
There's also a couple of job boards that are around. There's the Anim State Discord. A bunch of different places have job postings. I think the one that I used a lot was Polycount. There's like a modeling website, Polycount, but they also post like animation jobs on their jobs board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so and then like that would be like my freak out time, you know. It's like I don't know what I'm gonna be doing next, and I just like send like 50 emails in a couple of hours, and then inevitably you'd get like too much work, you know. Then you'd be overloaded, so you have to start turning things down, which is always like a weird feeling. You're like, I know that this is like if I could just shuffle this client over here, then I wouldn't be as worried. But it's kind of just you get the work as it falls. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I wouldn't mind going back to freelancing, but we'll see. The thing is, there's not that much, at least where I'm at in my skill level, in terms of persuading larger studios that I should be like an outsourced animation client.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if I wanted to work on a bigger movie, it would be harder for me to be like, hey, I'm in Melbourne. I don't really want to move. Could you just hire me for 4 months on this film?
Mm-hmm.
That would be great, but I don't think I'm there, and probably won't be there for some time.
Yeah, I don't think many do that. Well,
Yeah,
not
doesn't
for Hollywood anyway. Maybe for international films. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like I've had ideas about starting my own little company as well, so that you'd have like a few animators, maybe a couple of artists, and then you become like a outsourcing studio specifically used for films and games. Like there's Steamroller. They pretty much done it. They did that whole switch from like just being like a small indie outsourcing few people to like they're an actual big studio now developing their own stuff, and they're also still freelancing and they do film and games. So maybe one day if I get ambitious enough, I'll start a company.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think you need a good
So yeah.
producer. You need a good producer for that, I think, to get the jobs in, the contracts for you.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I think that would be like the first port of call, right? Like find a business partner who has the right connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that requires, like going to like GDC and Lightbox and like, going to parties and meeting people. It's not cheap. It's like a lot of money you got to put down to be able to even start thinking about doing something like that. And then it's still a risk. So, but hey, maybe one day. So yeah, we can talk a little bit about creating your own shots if you want. If there's any questions in the chat, if anyone's got anything they want to ask before we go, or I can just keep talking.
Yeah, just keep going until one of us interrupts you, I guess.
Alrighty.
Do you know how to share screen, I guess?
What was that?
Oh, you know how to share your screen, right?
Yeah, I'm just jumping on that now.
Cool, yep.
Alright, there we go. So I got, let's watch my reel real quick, huh? I'll post a link in the chat as well, so you can watch it. this little dude was actually for the Japan client. They were making this really cool little asynchronous first-person puzzle-solving thing, a little bit like Portal, but with more guns. Cool.
Good stuff, mate. That's
yeah.
great.
So there's like, as you can see, there's like a fair chunk of personal stuff in there at the moment. I'm hopefully getting some of the stuff from my time at Method and Jumanji and Terminator in there as soon as it comes to DVD. That's how they do it. So that'll be cool to have some big stuff in the reel. How do I go to chat? Where is chat?
You have to go down the bottom, and the bar will pop up. Yeah, but I can read those out for you. So if there's any questions, all right, you're posting a link.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I'll give. There's like another link right here. Scene sketch. Just so that if the video is lagging, which it almost certainly is, given my Australian internet, you can just watch along. So yeah, with creating your own shots, I think the most important thing to start thinking about is like the goal for the shot. So maybe the very first like reason for you creating the shot is you are bored at work and you feel like you're not animating the right kind of stuff, and then you would ask yourself, what sort of stuff would that be? Like, do I want to do more creature stuff? Am I not getting enough body mechanics? Do I want to do some acting? Like, what is the thing that you're looking to do? And then like come up with a goal for that. Maybe one comes before the other. Like, is the goal to have fun? Do you just want to like get some frustration out? Do you want to become Twitter famous? Like, do you want to like make something that's going to do really well on the internet? Do you want it to be for your animation reel? Is it like a very specific thing that your reel might be missing? Maybe you are looking for, you've got everything in your reel except for creatures, or like you've got way too many creatures in your reel, so maybe there's something you want to put in there. Is it just for practice? Like, are you feeling like your acting isn't quite up to scratch, so you want to like improve on that? Or are you going to be targeting like a specific studio or game or movie? Like, maybe you know that you've got a friend who's working on Godzilla, so you're like, I really want to work on Godzilla. They're still hiring for this movie. I might do like a massive creature shot, a really heavy creature, and then you put that in your reel and target that studio. So and this is all in the goal of getting you excited about creating the shot, because it's really hard to make time and get motivated to do a personal shot if there's no goal there for you, if you don't have like something in mind to sort of spur you on. And especially if that goal is something that you're excited about, like if you don't like where you're working right now, or you want to move up in where you are working right now, or whatever it happens to be, to sort of push you along. Because I find like motivation is the main thing people struggle with when it comes to animating outside of work hours. And if you've got a reason for it, it becomes it just steps up that level of, I'm actually going to do this because I actually care about the outcome. There's kind of different places you can go to start thinking about ideas for shots. So for me, a lot of my ideas come to me when I'm just walking. If you walk from the train to home, or if you just walk around the neighborhood, it's like a good like rhythmic thing. You're not really thinking about anything in particular. It's the best time to think of cool stuff, I think, is when your brain is like out of the picture and you're not really like focused on any one thing in particular. Taking a shower, going to the gym, whatever it is for you that lets your brain just like leave the house and you can focus on, or just let your mind wander. Another thing that I actually just stumbled on, and I'll show you this really stupid video I made. But it got me thinking, like, this could be a cool way to come up with like a shot. I did this. Did you rig? Yeah, I did rig Dragon Ball Z character myself. I did this Unido 1 rig for my Patreon. Oh, is it gonna load? Oh yeah. I don't know if you can hear the audio. It's really quiet, but it was just for fun, like a stupid Twitter spoof.
No, I can't hear anything.
That's alright. It's just quiet.
Oh, okay.
That's alright. I'm just moving the camera around while the cycle's playing, but then I realized watching it back, I was like, hey, this is actually some cool camera angles, and like, even if it's not playing this animation while it's doing this, if it's doing something else, there's just like, ideas start popping up. It's sort of like when you look at like a Rorschach test or like a cloud, you like see stuff that you might not have necessarily seen before. So like this idea right here of the camera low while it's like running along and like sweeping by its feet, like that's a really cool opening for like a potential action shot. Or like, just whatever different camera angles you can come up with. So to repeat this, you could find a character that you want to animate with, just put it in a interesting pose or a couple of different interesting poses. Move the camera around to music, because music helps you kind of like get an idea for rhythm, and then use that as like a jumping off point for a shot. It's just like anything that'll get your brain going, and sort of not thinking too hard about it, because I find that if you start planning it out a little bit too much, especially right now in the beginning, it can be like hard to find something good, especially if you're not really like if you're not like a storyboard artist or someone who comes from like a story or cinematography or shot planning layout background. I find it really hard to do layout and come up with ideas. So if I can stumble upon them, or if I can like make the ideas come to me, then that's really useful. The Samus shot, this one right here. This idea came to me while I was in one of those like isolation float tank pod things. And I was like, I want to do like an animation right now, because I was working on like this app while I was freelancing, and there was barely any animation in it, and it was for the wiggles. And I was like, this is not stimulating me at all. Let's like make something. And I was in the float pod, and I was like, what's the coolest action I could come up with? And that animator, what's his name? He did a Samus shot as well, and I was like, I want to do something like that, like it's maybe the ball's rolling and then it comes through, and it does sort of a similar arc, and then we go into like a different action. I'll try and remember the name of the guy; it'll come to me. So yeah, just wherever you can sort of let your brain get out of the way and start thinking about what's cool, what do you want to see, with that one goal in mind is really useful as well.
How'd you
so
do the,
another way you can
how'd you do the transition from the ball to the character, the biped?
There's one frame where it's both the biped and the ball.
Cool, yeah.
It's very simple, and it's just sort of like in a rolled up pose.
Yeah. So you just blending it in Maya, really, over a frame.
Yeah.
Stretching it.
Yeah.
It's like
you probably don't even need to have them both visible. Like, I reckon you could even get like grease pencil and just like paint over with orange, just like scribble.
Yeah.
And just like then that would get you kind of a better, more clean, shape. But yeah.
No, it still works without it.
Yeah, it gets the idea across, right? Like you don't see the point, hopefully. So, what else was I going to say here? Finding time, staying accountable. So, one way that I've heard some people use to like stay on point and stay accountable is to like write a check for like $50 and give it to their friend, and then say like, if I don't do this thing, you just get to cash this check, and here's like the deadline for it. It's like, then you've actually got money, like you've got something on the line to lose. That's a little bit far, I think. I don't know, I've never actually done that.
I should do that for all of my students. Get them to deposit.
What's that? You did that?
No, I should do it. Get them to deposit $50.
Yeah.
Finish your shot and you get it back.
Yeah, dude, the incentive is there. I feel like that's one of the things. It's like people seem to only work when there's money involved, which is weird. Another way you can keep accountable is doing a collab. So if you've got a friend or workmate who's like also interested in doing something similar, you could be like, all right, let's do this like fight scene, and I'll do the first half and you do the second half, or I'll do the blue character and you do the red character, or something like that. It gets a bit tricky with fight stuff because of all of the like grappling and fulcrum points and stuff, but think of something that you can potentially have two people working on at the same time. And if you're both excited about it for the same reasons, then that helps. You can wake up an hour earlier. Like if you're not already waking up super duper early to get ready for work, oftentimes a lot of people could stand to lose an hour of sleep and still be productive throughout the day. It's not like sustainable in the long term. Like if you're obviously like keep health in mind and like get 8 hours or whatever you need, but if you can do an hour in the morning, then that's really useful. Or you can do an hour after work. There was a time there when I was freelancing where I would be at this person's office all day, and then I would spend an hour after working there just working on my own stuff. So just like plonk an hour at the end of every day, and you've got 5 days a week. You've already got like 5 hours of animation dedicated to your personal stuff, and that's like nearly a full day. So it starts to rack up, and what you'll find with that is you'll start getting more excited about it as you see the thing taking shape. You'll want to not just spend an hour on it, you'll want to spend more than an hour, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can see this being something. Maybe I want to like spend like actually get in the zone with this, and then you like take time out of your weekend. So it's not like the more you put in, the more you get out. What else have I got here? Okay, so like once you've got started, another way to sort of keep things going is to post whips, like work in progress, play blasts or clips. I'm a little bit conflicted about whips. I don't really know how exactly I feel about it. I think sometimes posting a whip can be really good because it gets people excited and it builds your like profile. They're like, hey, this is really great. You get a bunch of likes and retweets, and that might motivate you to keep working on it, or it might motivate you to leave it. Maybe you already feel like you got enough out of it just by getting all of those retweets. I don't know. It's sort of a bit personal. It's also good because like if you start posting whips and building like a Twitter following or a social media following, you can build like a network of people who maybe that the people in your group can like say when work is available, or offer you a job or whatever it is. Like it's the more people you can get closer to you on social media with regards to work, it's kind of useful. I might talk about that a bit later in another freelancing part. So yeah, posting whips is good. The 40-10 method. So this is a bit of a personal one. It depends however you want to do it. So the 40-10 is you work for 40 minutes and then you relax for 10. I found this only worked when I was a lot younger, and maybe I just need to try it again, but the idea is that you work for 40 minutes straight with no distractions. You like unplug the internet, your phone's in a drawer, you're not able to like look at anything really except for the screen and your work for like 40 minutes straight. And then you take 10 minutes after that to do whatever you like. You can check social media, you can play a little mobile game, whatever it is. And the idea there is to keep going. Like after you do that 10 minutes rest, you do another 40 minutes, and you do 10, then you do 40, and you just keep on rolling. And yeah, like the idea is to have that 40 minutes be really productive, rather than do like 8 hours of work and then have maybe 1 hour of that be productive work. You end up with like a stack of really productive work. And that's an interesting thing as well. Like I find that when I'm doing personal work, I tend to be pretty distracted. Like I'm like, this is my time. I get to like put Twitch on in the background. I get to like listen to different podcasts or just have a movie on the other monitor. I'm not really super focused on it, especially in the beginning. I'm just kind of like planning out ideas, and whatever's in the background screen is in the background screen. So yeah, and with the 40-10 method, it can be loose as well. Like it doesn't have to be 40 minutes, you could do half an hour on and 20 minutes off. Something, whatever ends up working for you. Let's talk a little bit about process, I guess.
Excuse me.
Hey.
Can you hear me? Hey.
Yeah.
I just had a question. You talked about like planning your ideas at the same time if you were watching movies and stuff like that. Do you sketch when you plan, or do you plan like on Maya or something?
With my personal stuff, I tend to just jump straight into Maya. I don't draw too often. I do a little bit of life drawing, and I find that gets like the drawing out of my system. I don't do too much like thumbnails or ideation on like paper. I'll tend to just like start posing it out, and if it works, I kind of know. Like I've heard a lot of people be like, it's a good point, because like a lot of people really use the lightweightness of paper to get their ideas out really quick to see if they're working. But for me, it's just as quick to pose a character, and then like if you've got the character pose and it's working, then you're already some of the way there. That's kind of how I see it. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That's all right. So let's talk a little bit about process. I got some like different stages of this dragon shot that I did. So let's look at the final one. I did this right before I started a method. So this is one of the newer shots, I guess. And I was also like playing around with like rendering and lighting and stuff in this one. Someone on Twitter had posted like here's an easy way to light your shot. So I just followed that tutorial. So to come up with this, I was like, I know I want to do a creature shot. I haven't done creatures in a while. I know I want to do a dragon because I haven't animated a dragon in like 4 years. So let's do that. I found a dragon rig. It's the Josh Sobel one. I think it costs money, this one, but I'm not sure. I'll post a link. Josh Sobel. I'll post a link later. This little thing is really annoying. Alright, there we go. So I thought rather than like have the rig in the scene, it's quite a heavy rig being a dragon with all the bones in the wings. I was like, let's plan out the shot with a cube first. You've probably seen this around before, maybe not, but it gets you like thinking about the rhythm of the shot. There's not even any like cubes for wings or anything like that. It's literally just the shape that I imagine the body doing as it like flaps and comes down and walks across the rocks. Let me just make sure I got the right order here. I believe it is in the right order. Yep, okay, cool. So then this is what like my first pass kind of looks like. You can tell I got really excited about animating wings and like spent a lot of time getting the wings working early. And then there's like all kinds of like space popping issues with the head looking around. The way that I was still kind of like figuring out the rig at this point, not knowing like whether or not I wanted the head to be IK or like, FK and locked or, something in between, just sort of working it out. Same thing with the hands. I think, you can see there's like pops when the IK and FK turns on and off. And this is also like an interesting point right here is where I decided that I like the sort of speed of the swishingness of the tail. So I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I like how he like whips right before he lands. Let's focus in on that. So that's like part of the process, right? Like as you're creating your own personal shot, because it's so open, you have the potential to be like, you know what, maybe this dragon doesn't weigh 8 tons. It only weighs like 3 or 1, or maybe only like X amount. You can sort of play with stuff a little bit. You're not so locked into, if you're creating a shot for like Jumanji or something, it's like, oh, this horse is obviously this kind of horse. This is how it moves. You kind of have to stick to that. When you're doing more personal stuff, you can just be open.
Joe Abhishek asks, do you share around your shot while working on it to get reviews from your friends or peers?
Not normally in this point, because unless I'm like stuck or really need some advice, I kind of just keep going ahead with where I'm at. And it depends on how you feel about that. Maybe at this early point, you might want to show it to like a brain's trust or friends or something like that to sort of bounce off and see if they have any cool ideas for you. But for me, I've kind of already got the idea in my head mostly. I have the main beats in my head, so it's just a matter of just spending the time to get there. And then everything else is laid on top of that. Like I was talking about the tail, like then the weight of the thing, maybe it weighs less. You can see here I'm like playing with how I want the hands to come down. Like, originally I thought it would be like and it would like land really heavy, but now I'm like maybe the hands are like kind of floppy. And then they come down sort of one after the other. I think I'm also adding like some handheldy sort of camera stuff here and a little bit of a shake. Yeah, and so you can see like we're kind of like halfway through the process, right? Or like getting towards the end of the process right here, and I'm like, maybe we want a camera change. So that kind of like that throws off the whole like the original idea was I wanted just one camera, but because it's like a personal shot, you can do that. You're not locked to the plate, or you're not locked to whatever the game camera is. You can play around with it. And I think I had ideas for it like coming down the steps a little bit more. Like if you look at the original box, I think he like comes down. Yeah, he like steps down and he goes around. I want to get that like snaking kind of idea of like the head leading through the action. I don't think I got there in the end. I think I kind of, yeah, he sort of just comes down and around. If I were to go back and do this again, I'd try and do that, get the head leading the action a little bit more. And the Josh Sobel Dragon rig actually comes with like a bunch of face sculptors and body sculptors and color texture packs, and you can just like use the picker that comes with the rig to change between them really easily. So at this point I was like trying to figure out a little bit more the personality of the dragon. I changed the whole like color and the shape of the head. And it's really cool when rigs have that level of customization. It gives you, as the animator, it gives you like way more creative freedom. Francisco, what kind of reference did you use while animating the dragon? This actually didn't use any reference. This is all just like trying to remember how flight works. I know that I've seen, Game of Thrones was happening at the time, so I think I was looking at some dragon stuff from that, but I didn't want to be too tired. I didn't have any like reference on the other screen while I was doing this. I was just like remembering like how to do a flap and thinking about the weight of something with 4 legs as it lands. I wasn't doing any personal reference. I didn't film anything. Yeah, this is just all at the top of my head. I don't know. That's probably lazy. I don't know if it's good. It's probably lazy. And you see here, like I'm really pushing that tail idea. I was thinking like, oh, the tail gets kind of lost behind the body a little bit, but you still get the sense of it really whipping. And especially at the end here, I push it even further. I was like, I want the tail to like whip past as he does this like roar at the camera. I think at multiple times during this process, I was trying to decide what, there's different thoughts about like how dragons' wings work in animation and in the real world. Like, how are they delicate? They're so thin. Should they avoid touching the ground? Or do they not care? Like, they're dragons. They're made out of diamonds or whatever. They can do whatever they want with their wings. But I think with this one, I was like, he's going to use these like pointy bits as like sort of arms and claws. He's going to dig them into the ground to get like a bit of stability as he's walking around. here's blocking. Yeah. We're going back in time now, but I missed this one because it was not called a number, it was just called blocking. So this is what it this is what it looked like before I did first pass. Pretty dirty. And this is kind of just my method as well. Like I know that when it comes to doing personal shots, I like to change how I do my process, just because it's like this is my time to experiment and find new stuff. So I might not do the cube through to blocking through like spline passes. I might try and stay in step for a really long time, or I might use reference 1-to-1. It's like whatever process you feel is best going to get you the goal or something that you want to try. It's a really good time to like think about how you've been doing things as an animator and shift it a little bit, or maybe just refine it a little bit. So like for instance with this one, this is a Carl Figgins rig. Like I didn't do any blocking or any reference or anything. I didn't even research. I was just like, let's put this thing in cool poses and just like throw it across the screen and just see what happens. Like this was the result of just being really bored and just playing around. And it was like a new Carl Figgins rig that I wanted to try out. And then like midway through, I was like, I remember Final Fantasy, what was it? Final Fantasy 13 or I don't know which one it was, with Prince Noctis, and he had this thing where he could like throw his sword or his blade and like teleport to wherever it landed, and I was like, that's a really cool thing. So when you're like coming up with ideas, or if you're like me and you just like launch yourself into making something like this, as you go, stuff kind of comes to you, and it's good then to like reflect on that and be like, well, what was cool about Noctis? Was it the way that he threw it, or was it the fact that he teleported, or was it the particles? Maybe we could use particles, and then you start like doing some research on that and adding it into your shot. It's just like the ideal time to mess around. So one of the places that I like to go to come up with cool ideas is anime. Like anime oftentimes is like they do this like very cheap thing where they're just like still pose and like a mouth talking, but then they do like the sakuga, like the really high budget action sequences, and like it's just like filled like to the brim with cool ideas and jumping off points. So I have this clip from like let me just mute it, Evangelion, and you can just like literally pick a frame somewhere and you'll come up with something cool. Right? Like how this plane comes apart. If you're not an effects artist, how would I do this? What would we do to like get this effect going in just animation? That would be a really cool idea to like play around with the character smashing something and then it coming apart. This whole sequence is just a big fight. So these guys have got these like big double-sided blades, and they look like they weigh like more than a building. They're just so heavy. So when they swing them around, they go off balance, like they lose balance. So like that's something to play with. Like what if I gave my character, oh geez, it's gory. What if I gave my character like something that was so heavy that they, to even swing it, they need to like fall over basically. So if we go back here, this is really interesting, the way they do ground breaking in anime. They do this thing where, maybe not in this example, but oftentimes they'll just use cubes. They'll float cubes and then float them slowly. Like, look at how they do that and try and replicate it and add it like as extra spice into your shot. Yeah, anime is just full of, yeah, here we go, here's the example of the swinging. Back here a little bit. Right? Look at these poses, dude. It's nuts. Like, he can't even, like, lift this thing without his whole spine being bent over. Yeah, it's awesome. So with anime and like looking for inspiration, I have this thing where I'm like a little bit hesitant to be like just copy it one for one. But here's an example of taking something and just doing it one for one, and like you can see some parts of it are really successful and other parts aren't. And there's lessons to learn from that. It's like, well, if I'm animating all on twos, does the camera stay all on twos as well, or all on fours? How does the camera work? I think I learned from this that the camera should probably not be on all the exact same frames as all the poses that you're working on. So this is on like fours or something, and I had the camera like clicking along with the character. So maybe next time I would rather have, if the character's moving on fours, then the camera's moving on twos, so you get like this kind of more smooth motion. What else have I got here? So when I was at Method, how did you make him go Super Saiyan? I've got, with great power, you know, like he's got to get over a certain power level and then his hair changes color. Remember the show?
2000 or
this
something.
rig that I made, sorry?
2000 or something. Level 2000.
Yeah. Over 9,000.
9,000.
Yeah, there we go. Taylor knows.
Taylor's on it.
Taylor knows. Yeah. Very good. This rig has,
a no trap.
The model came with a bunch of different face shapes or a bunch of different face meshes. So in the rig, I just made like a set-driven key that as you drag the number across, it changes what the face is doing, and there's one for the hair as well. So I'm just literally keying numbers to make the hair and the face change shape. And this like shape is just like I think it's like a polygon sphere or something. I just extruded all of the verts, or just grabbed all of the verts and moved them up. And like this is like a bit of a, depending on how far you want to take things with your personal shot. Like for me, this was just to promote the rig. So I spent like 3 hours on this. So like just, you could have done some really cool stuff with like painting in this stuff around the outside, you know, going hog wild with like making it look like a crayon in Photoshop or After Effects or whatever it is, and you know, really pushing it up to a level that maybe it's something that you could include in a demo reel. But for me, the purpose of this was just like, all right, we're going to make this Goku rig. Let's put something on Twitter so that people know that it actually works.
Nice. Keiko asks if you have a favorite Japanese anime where you get all your cool ideas from for your action shots.
I don't know about favorite, but there's anything by Studio Trigger is really cool. So like Little Witch Academia and Kill la Kill. There's Furikuri as well, which is like pretty old now, but it's amazing. My Hero Academia I started watching, and that's got some really cool stuff in it. It's just like whatever's happening, man. Dude, anime, there's so much cool stuff. You don't have to look far. I don't think I have a favorite though. Yeah, I don't watch enough of it to like have a favorite or a least favorite or anything. What else have we got here?
Hey mate, how long did this shot take you? Just from idea to saying, yeah, it's done, I'll move on to the next. And your dragon shot as well.
The Dragon Ball one?
Yeah. Both. So your dragon shot, and your Dragon Ball one.
Yeah, cool. So the Dragon Ball one was like 3 hours. It was really quick. It was just like an after work thing.
3 hours.
Yeah. This was a quick one.
Just smash it out.
It's pretty nasty though. Like it's not. There's parts of it that I don't really like, and it's like based on the Dragon Ball FighterZ thing, the game Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like a reference point for this. This didn't just come to me. The Dragon Shot though, man, I'd have to go back and look at the scene files, but I think it was like a week.
Oh yep.
It was quite a bit longer. And this was just like on and off throughout the week. Hours here, a couple hours there. Like, yeah, it's kind of just whatever I was doing. But I think it took about a week, maybe a bit longer.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty quick.
Thanks.
Francisco asked, do you use blend shapes when animating?
Only in the rigs that have them. I've been thinking about getting better at like doing some smears and stuff like that with blend shapes. There's the example of that is this shot. Oh no, where is it? Yeah. Oh, it's just my reel. Okay. Yeah, this shot in my reel. So there's like a couple of shapes. I think mostly with the flames. I think originally I had shape like a mesh duplication thing going on in like a previous iteration of it when he does this roll, but I must have gotten rid of it. Yeah, I've gotten rid of it. But yeah, I don't use it too often. I would like to get more into it because I feel like it's something fun to play with. Oh yeah, I was going to show some process for that bounty hunter shot, I think, if I've got it.
Francisco asked, what about when he pops up those guns from his arms?
Oh, that's just, everything with me is really lo-fi. You'll learn that I don't do anything really advanced with my animation. This is just a piece of mesh that I duplicated from the rig, so there was like an arm piece that I liked the shape of. I just duplicated it and parented it to the hand control, and then I just rotated it up.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's what I tell all the other guys to do. Just, make something that works and functions and moves correctly, and just, it's gonna just make it move cool. That's what we do. So
yeah. As long as it doesn't stand out, like it has to kind of like feel right. And that's the thing as well, is it's like these things are on screen for like 10 frames or 12 frames or something. You barely see them, so you don't get enough time to like process that this is just like empty blackness in here. Or that you see it like disappear. It doesn't actually like, there's no hole in the arm when the thing lifts up.
Yeah.
Like all that sort of stuff.
Actually, if you watch Transformers, they do the same thing.
Do they?
Yeah. I spoke to
cool.
animators on the show as well, and they all just scale, transform, rotate, whatever works. There's no one way of transforming. They just move pieces.
Yeah, just make it look good, man.
Exactly.
Fill with it until it looks good. It's the same thing with these guns. Like there's nothing special. There's no like. This is a separate rig. This gun rig that I made. It's just a free gun model from the internet. Like a Turbo Squid, whatever. And I just like rigged this, like the whatever it's called, the back part of the gun to be able to move, so that it hits these kind of like sci-fi shapes. I don't know. Like thought it was cool when it was happening, and then like when it comes forward, that sort of slides down. Same thing when it fires, like the top part of the gun flies way too far back. But you get these shapes, right? Same thing with the muzzle flashes. Like I just took like a polyprimitive, like a cube or a triangle or something, and then just like made this shape, and then put a ramp shader on it, and put like 4 bones in through the middle of it, so that I could twist it and move it and shape it. So this muzzle flash rig is the exact same rig as the foot one. I think it's a different mesh, but it's like the same bones or whatever in the middle of it. So these flames can like twist and move around and whatever. There's probably a better, like if I had to use blend shapes or something, I could have had some more control over exactly like what shape that it hit, and making it look a bit nicer, but it just did the job at the time. Same thing with his back. Like it would have been really cool to have like a vent or something open on his back, but you kind of just don't see it. There's not enough time, so it just works. This one shot took ages as well, by the way. This one was like months, and this was with like a mentor and everything. So there's a reason it's the first shot in my reels, because I worked the hardest on it. There was originally a bunch of other stuff in the shot as well. Like I had a cube and some wires and stuff. Yeah, there you go. So I used to have this in the roll. It's green because like when I play blasted it wasn't finished. And the roll looks wrong. You know, like this is like the shot in a way earlier part in production or part in my process. He even did like a flip. He did all this crazy stuff. Throws a grenade. And then like zip lines out of there. Like the shot was so long. The shot was 436 frames long.
It's fun though. You're having fun with it. You know, you can tell.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. Originally, this is how it looked, and then I took it to a mentor or to like a teacher, and he was like, "It's good, but let's just cut like the last half of it because it's going to take way too long to make all of that work. I reckon we can get half of it working correctly, and then from there, just save it for a rainy day or just leave it." Mark's here. Oh my god. Mark's one of my internet friends.
Oh yeah.
Internet animation friends. Yeah. It's kind of cringy to look at this for me because there's so many parts in this that I thought were awesome. Like that roll, I remember thinking, wow, that's really cool the way that he rolls so fast. But he rolls so fast. Rolls way too fast. And this part as well, I was like, this is a cool little twist that I solved. But really, like, I don't think anyone can make these shapes with their body. And he goes off balance, and a lot of like this pose is really boring, and it's not based on reference. So when I did the actual this, my mentor was like, so get into this pose, and then try and spin around, and then get into this pose, and just see how it feels. And can you do it in the way that you did it in your shot? Like, can you stand up and spin around? Or is it easier to do it another way? And I was like, all right, I'll try. So I like got a foam roller and pretended it was a gun and like got on my hands and knees and like did this action. And I was like, oh my God, I like fell over. There's no way to do it. Didn't feel right. I kept trying a few different ways. Ended up filming a bunch of reference, plonking it in the scene, and then using that as like a solve to fix that section of the animation. So I feel like that this is way more like tactical feeling than the original. There's some cool ideas in here. There are like little rocks coming up when he lands. It's pretty anime-ish.
Seema asks.
And there's like a.
Oh, sorry, mate. Seema asks if you ever come up with idea A, but while working on your idea becomes B and the final result turns out to be C. So I'm guessing original idea and then just morphs into something entirely different.
Yeah, very rarely does it like completely 180. Like if I have the initial, idea that's cool, then I'll try and like stick to that. But this is like maybe an example of that kind of changing. So like there's a lot of stuff in here that is quite different, like how stretched he gets through here, for instance, or like this limb break right here. It just isn't present in the final version, but he still kind of does the same actions. I don't think of anything else that just totally morphed. I don't think there is that I've worked on at least that does that full 180. Got a couple of other ones to look at here. I'll just keep going through shots and we can keep talking about them if you want, or we can jump and talk about freelance.
Nah, keep going. Yeah.
Keep going?
It's good to see your stuff and your workflow and your ideas as well.
Yeah, it's cool to like go back and look at this stuff as well.
Yeah.
So here's like a really early version of it. And then he flies off at the end, which is different. But yeah, this is all in stepped and just, blocked out. But, you get the idea, right? Like the poses are all there. You can kind of get a feel for what he's doing a little bit. Let's look at something else. Oh yeah, so when I was at Method, I did a bunch of tests. So when they start you on a show or a movie, they'll be like, all right, so in this movie we've got chicken. So we want you to get used to animating chickens and get a sense of how they work. I don't have any chicken tests to show, unfortunately, but this was one that they did at the very beginning just to get used to their biped rig. And at this particular studio, they were really focused on reference and being really sticking really close to the reference. So in this version, the reference is kind of off to the side, and this is how I animated it. But there's been other shots that I did at the studio where the reference was like literally on top of the mesh, on top of the rig. So you like X-ray the rig and then have the reference underneath and almost match move. And then at a certain point, you pull the reference away and make all the adjustments and fixes. I don't really find that as an especially pleasing way to work. Like I think it can be a bit soulless because the motion's already there, right? Like there's no creativity in like coming up with the motion. You're not really solving many problems. You're just kind of like looking really hard at something. And there's something to be like learned from that, right? Like with this shot, it's like how does his hips move as he goes through the air? You know, like a lot of people do jump animations and the hips just stay totally locked as they go up and down, or maybe the whole body just rotates. But like when you're jumping through the air, there's like, if you look really close at the reference, he does like this little twist thing and then it rotates around to talk for his body and the action of the hand coming down. So there's like stuff to learn in there, but it's not like you're, there's not like a creativity to it. You're not like just discovering something and then twisting it. You're just discovering something and then making it look exactly as the way that you saw it. And that's not to say that that is like the way that it always works, but for the most part, I found that it was like, find the reference for the thing that we have in this shot and then rotomate it as best you can, and then we're going to use that. But I learned a lot in animating this way. It's definitely something I recommend people try to do, especially if you're like getting used to animation. If you're a junior, it can be a way to get a really clean looking thing and get used to like how much work it takes to get something looking natural. I think a lot of times junior or newer animators will call an action done, like I saw before, like with my bounty hunter shot. I was like, it's done, you know, but really there was all this extra stuff that needed to come on top of it to like push it to that next level to make it look like it was actually a real body mechanic shot. And so you learn a lot when you do this sort of thing, right? Like you learn that the spine is made up of all these different pieces and they need to like overlap in a certain way, and you can't just break laws willy-nilly in order to like get it looking realistic. So yeah, it's useful. Plus it's kind of fun and mindless. Like it's like painting weights or doing UVs or whatever it is that you do in 3D that like you have to switch your brain off a little bit for. You just kind of like put the reference in and just frame by frame or every 4 frames. Anybody else have anything? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm just reading the chat. When do you call a shot finished? I don't even ever fully finish a shot. Yeah, man, it's like it's finished when the deadline is, right? Or it's finished when you're really, really sick of it if it's a personal shot. If you've just seen it too many times and you're like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. It can be nice to get like fresh eyes on a shot like that to see like, because oftentimes there's stuff that other people see that you don't see. So it's really useful to show other people. But sometimes you just want to be done with it, right? What else have I got in here? So this shot also has like a no reference version, which is just the same thing, right? But it's useful to have both so you can see like, there's something weird that happens. Even though there's reference in the scene and you're looking at your animation, you still kind of, you're still affected by the reference, even if you're not looking at it directly. So playing your animation back without any reference will show you things that you might not have seen before. How does everyone else feel about when you call a shot finished? Do you have like a point in time? Are you like, I'm going to work on this for X amount of hours, or do do you wait until it's approved by someone, or like how do you know when you're done?
Yeah, it depends on deadlines or if it's personal shot. Yeah, it depends on if you're sick of it, and also, sometimes I might do like say 3 revisions with feedback from people, or even just like I'll look at it. I'll say a personal shot. I'll put into Sing Sketch myself and actually just objectively just go through frame by frame. Check the arcs and everything. So don't even think it's my shot, and just see if they're all correct.
Yep.
The checklist. Once that's done, then
Yep.
I'll just get rid of it.
Yeah. Do you use someone's checklist in particular, or do you have your own checklist?
It's just my own now. It's pretty much like, make sure the fundamentals are in there, like the polish to clean up the arcs, spacing feels good, timing, rhythm, motion, all that stuff. Feels real and believable, feels heavy, overlaps, all the juicy stuff. So
that good juice. There's something that I try to do is flip the canvas. So like you play your animation back. And this is another test that I did while I was at Method. This was for Jumanji. We have a horse in our movie.
Awesome.
So it's just like, but if you flip it, suddenly like everything changes. Everything changes, and like it's sort of like flipping the canvas when you're drawing. If anyone's ever used Photoshop to paint and stuff like that, you see a lot of different things. Because it's like your mind's not used to it or something. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but you do see things fresh. It's also good to take a break, right? Like after you play blast something, go get a coffee, come back, try and have fresh eyes. The best way to do it, obviously, is to like go to sleep. Like if you play blast something at the end of the day, have a sleep, come back, look at it fresh in the morning, then you'll see things, or hopefully you see things.
Yeah, I find that's the best. Checking it out the next day in the morning, it just looks like a different shot. So I think
it
that's
always
the
does,
best.
and it always is awful.
yeah.
It's always like, oh no, did I put this up for dailies?
Yeah.
Oh god, I put this up for dailies.
Who messed with my shot? Who opened up my scene and messed with my shot?
Yeah, someone else did this. That's kind of all I got to show in terms of my work and talking about personal work. If you've got any questions, then we can talk about stuff. Oh, I saw someone asking about games versus film. What was that one?
That was probably a question, actually.
It's alright.
What are the main differences between working for gaming industry to VFX industry? That's by Andre.
Okay. Andre, the main thing that I noticed when I started working in film was that there was a much higher attention to detail. So with games, especially if you're working at a smaller studio and there's no like animation dailies or review, you kind of just animate and stuff ends up in the game. People don't necessarily give you notes until they see it working, and then you might get like, hey, this feels weird, but it's often by like someone else on the team, not necessarily an animator. Whereas in film, it's like you show your lead and you show the supervisor, and it ends up going to see like, the higher ups, visual effects supervisor and director and all that, and everyone has their own take on the notes. So you end up with this like hyper adjusted sense of what everyone in the team really wants to see and how they react to things. And as a result, you get like hyper focused on detail. So you know that like your animation suit, for instance, really likes the sort of raw muscle firing feeling in creatures. They don't want to have a sense that they're really thinking about their motions. So you try and build that in. You know that the lead really wants to see like solid mechanics and no weird off balance stuff. So you try and make sure you get that in there. And then the director has always given like weird notes about whatever. I don't know, the directors give weird notes. So but you try and like put all of that stuff in before you even put it up for me anyway, before I even put it up for blocking. So that by the time they see it, it's like the best it can be. And then you get notes. There's a bit of like I don't know how you feel about this, Eddie, but sometimes people put up like stepped animation or they put up just first pass line for dailies. Do you have like a way that you prefer to do it, or that you found that it works where you are now?
When it comes to biped stuff, I'd go with step keys, and go with step keys, even detailed blocking in stepped for a few rounds. When it's more creature stuff and stuff with plates, I'll just go linear. I'll just go straight ahead a bit and go straight into splining. I don't know why. I guess because there's a plate and there's a camera, which is already smooth. And I guess for some reason, maybe with quads, I just find just splining is a lot easier for my brain anyway to kind of link it all together.
Yeah. Do you do like a layered thing where you like move the torso through space and then like layer in the legs, or do you like build the poses as you go through straight ahead?
I go straight ahead, so every pose I'll pose out and make it clean as much as I can, including fingers, but no face. So even maybe like hard to tell or anything like that, but I'll try to make each pose clean and clear.
Yeah, and I that's back to the games versus movies thing. Sometimes games is a bit more like varied in terms of what you are aiming to get. So like, depending on the project, it's going to be like a third-person action game or a first-person shooter or like a top-down twin-stick shooter. Like, there's all sorts of different things that it could be, and all of those require like a different way of looking at animation and how you treat it. Whereas movies is like, you've got the plate and that's kind of it, right? Like, or you've got the shot, the layout, and that's kind of what you're stuck with. So you're like, it's good and bad in both ways, right? Like, if you're doing game, you kind of got to think that it's going to look good from multiple angles, so that's like a challenge. But if you're doing film, then you're locked on the angle, so you have to make it look good from that angle. But you can cheat a little bit sometimes, or you can hide things and force perspective and stuff like that, as long as the audience or it's not apparent to everyone. So yeah, there is differences, and there's also differences in like, at least I found in terms of like the hierarchy of the studio. Like when I worked at Method, it was quite a big place, like a large company owned by, it had like it used to be Allura, and it was bought by Method. So there's like a bit more of a corporate structure. There's a lot more sort of admin and middle management and stuff like that, which is good and bad. But whereas in games, especially in Melbourne, I find most of the studios are small, indie or medium, and they don't necessarily have all of the layers of staff, the same level of staff, and the same hierarchies as well. So at most, I've had like 3 or 2 other animators on a games project. Whereas in film, there was like, I think there was like 12 of us or something like that working at Method. Mm-hmm. And they were all sort of varying levels of awesome, like there was like people who were really, really great at specific things and other people who were really great at specific things. And everyone kind of had their like niche in film. Whereas in games, I found it's just like everyone's just doing animation. Maybe it's just like, it's because Melbourne's games industry is a little bit younger, and it's sort of, it's not younger, but it's been torn down and it's trying to build itself back up again over time. So it feels a bit like a bit more immature in certain ways. Not in a bad way. I'm not trying to like be mad at the games industry, but it does feel a little bit less sort of, it's like it's had less time to cook. Mm-hmm. So there's still like, people are still trying to work things out. I'm just going to just close the laundry door. I don't know if you can hear the washing machine that's going off right now.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was sirens. So if anyone else has questions, feel free to type it or ask Joe. I think you're still muted there, mate.
There we go.
Yep.
Does that answer your question, Andre, about the games versus film?
Yes.
Cool.
Paula had a question for you, which is what we were going to talk about earlier anyway. Can you talk about how you started freelancing in Australia and freelancing in general?
Yeah, sure. I've got some slides from a talk I did about freelancing. How are we going for time? I'm just sort of wondering how quickly I should blast through these slides.
Well, to me, you're good. Like, if you have time, just talk about whatever you want to talk about.
All right.
So here it's fine, yeah.
All right.
Hour and 15 so far?
Quick. I don't want to, like... What's that?
It's been an hour and 15 so far.
Okay. All right. That's a lot of talking. I'll keep it quick. So, I did this talk at, like, a local sort of artist collective thing in Melbourne called Charlie Red. Charlie Red isn't too active anymore, but they used to do like monthly presentations where artists would come and talk about whatever they wanted. And I decided to do a talk about freelancing because I'd just been doing a whole bunch of freelancing at the time. So here's a few of the different projects that I got to work on while I was freelancing. There's a great talk on YouTube by Ben Morrow. I don't know if you've heard of Ben Morrow or you know Ben. He's a concept artist for film and game, and he's incredible. I remember seeing this talk years ago and being like, I want to do that. This guy basically does like the digital nomad thing, and he travels around and works on all sorts of different movies. And this Business Art Life talk, he spends an hour and 10 minutes going into his sort of philosophy and how he built out his career doing freelance. It's really good. I highly recommend. So when I first started this is going back on my history a little bit now, so I won't spend too long, but when I first started in doing like animation stuff, I worked in advertising, and it was pretty bad. I ended up getting like left with a whole TV department as a junior, so there was like all sorts of things that went wrong with the company. Ended up getting fired. It was just not a great time. And then I started in games at a place called Taurus Games. That's where I got most of my initial games experience. We worked on like PC, mobile, and console, previous gen console like PS3, Xbox 360. And we did a lot of like publisher stuff. So we worked for Mattel and Disney. We did a Barbie game, a Monster High game. The mobile game that we did was our own, but it was kind of their first foray into doing mobile, so it had its pluses and minuses. And they ended up shutting down. So my first job I got fired. The second job we all got let go because the studio closed down. The next place that I worked at was Gree. And this is all studio work, so I'm going to try and breeze through it. It was Gree. They were working on a massive mobile game. Gree Japan is a huge mobile games company in Japan. And they bought one of the existing Melbourne studios called Blue Tongue. And they decided to sort of use Blue Tongue as a way to build the new IP. And it was this multi-year, multi-million-dollar project. And it was kind of good because it was like my first sort of glance into what corporate work would be like there's benefits and stuff like that. Like we got free lunch, free public transport, free gym, we got all sorts of stuff. But then, obviously, if you're owned by someone, they cannot own you anymore, and that's exactly what happened. Bree shut the Melbourne branch down, as well as Vancouver, as well as San Francisco. They just closed a whole bunch of studios, and the game didn't end up coming out. So they spent, I don't know, many millions of dollars and a lot of time building this mobile game, and then decided to can it. So I've got this slide here, which is a bit controversial. Job security is almost always a myth. And like anyone that's worked in film or game knows that like these projects they tend to hire on and then hire off. And Eddie, we were talking about this last night when we caught up a little bit, but it's kind of the nature of the beast a little bit. You've got to expect to come in for a job and then no longer work at that place, or especially if it's like in certain volatile places like Melbourne where things will grow and then they'll fall just as quickly as they grew. Like it's kind of just the nature of the beast a little bit, so don't expect to have security anyway. And that led me down to doing freelance. So I was like, I'm sick of places closing down. I want to be able to like not close down and be on my own, and that's what I did. So I got really lucky. One of my friends was working on a game that was funded by Film Victoria, which is like a government funding body for film and games in Australia or in Melbourne, and they give a certain amount of money to different studios to develop their games. They're working on a game called Paperbark, and I got to work on Paperback for like a year and start like using that as a way to gain more clients. So after Paperback came out, it was like, oh, Joe animated on Paperback, let's get him in to do our game. And it kind of just grew from there. So I've got this slide, what exactly can you offer? So at the time in Melbourne, there was like a lack of sort of the higher fidelity animation in games, especially in the indie games. A lot of them were coming out with like very simple, almost uni level content. And I was like, I want to be able to fix that. I want to be able to cater to this sort of like missing part of the content creation of the game and try and fill that gap. So when you're going into freelance, like think about what's missing in the situation that you're trying to do freelance for. Is there something that you can fill a hole for? Then I'll align and try and offer that as best you can. So whether or not that's your reel or like some package that you send out to clients to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, I can offer this, would you like? Working with clients, it's nice to set the mood early, so you kind of present yourself in a certain way. It's like first impressions kind of vibe. They pay you, so don't rip them off. Like set your rate early and then be very clear about how you charge. When I was working freelance, I had a specific rate and I charged by the hour, and it was very stringent how I track my time, and I'll go into that a little bit later. Be open and honest about your availability. You need to say, hey, I've only got X amount of days in the week to work this job. Is that enough? If no, then you can't do it. Don't try and like say, hey, I've got all of this time, even though you don't, because you'll end up snowing yourself under. Get comfortable with the amount that you're going to charge. You need to keep in mind that if you're doing freelance, you need to be able to do a lot of the accounting side of it as well, or get an accountant to manage it for you. So your rate is really dependent on where you live and is like the cost of living wherever you are. But I always try to think of it as at least double what you would be getting in a studio. So if you were getting $25 an hour in a studio, Australian dollars, then charge 50 or more. That's like just a yardstick. I'd err on the more side because you've got to take tax and superannuation and just cost of living out of the money that you're getting from freelancing. And if you're working by the hour, it sort of starts to stack up, and you need to just be aware that you should probably be charging more. Invoicing, try to stay professional and consistent. When I was freelancing, I used a software or a web software called QuickBooks. And QuickBooks is great because it sort of manages all your cash flow, and you can see when stuff is coming in and going out. It has like an invoice template, lets you make it all nice. I'll show you an invoice later. Contracts, there's often questions about, should I have, like as a freelancer, should I have my own boilerplate contract to give to prospective clients? Personally, I think that the client should be the one providing the contract. They're the company, established company, supposedly established company. They should be able to have a lawyer or someone to create contracts for them. I think putting the onus on the freelancer does happen, so it just depends, I guess, in your own situation, kind of figure it out as you go. But if they're not supplying a contract, it's usually a red flag for me. Mm-hmm. And always read the contract, make sure that you understand. And if you don't, talk to a friend who's a lawyer or talk to a lawyer. Usually there's like very cheap consultations that you'll get from lawyers. You don't have to spend a lot of money. So this is like kind of what a typical work week would look like if you're working in a studio full time. It's like you have the green being the work days and the purple being leisure days. Whereas when you're freelancing, you can sort of split it up a little bit because you're not holding to an employer necessarily. So if you want to have the first part of Monday morning off, then go for it, as long as you back that up with the amount of work that you need to do. So when I was freelancing, I used a web software called Clockify. So I think the website is just clockify.me. If you just Google Clockify, you'll find it. Basically, it's just a big advanced stopwatch. So this stopwatch lets you put in clients and tasks, and it's free. So what I would do is I would have like my clients split up by color. So you see here like all projects split up by color. You see like Shape Farm working on RAD, and then I press start and work on whatever the task is. And then as soon as I'm done with the task, I press stop and fill in the task name. and that would be like 45 minutes or something like that, whatever it happens to be. And then throughout the day, that would stack up, and I'd get a sense of what I worked on for how long and for whom. And then at the end of the month, Clockify is great because it lets you just press the button on the side here, and it just like does like a big pie graph and shows you by project how much you worked on each thing. So you just go, I worked for 2 bulls for 21 hours this month. 21 hours in QuickBooks, send the invoice, and we're done. So it's just like a nice clean way of tracking things. There's no spreadsheets or, you don't really have to manage that much, just as long as you're diligent with using the software. Then it all works out. Oh yeah, there you go, that's what it looks like. So you can see like RAD was 63 hours, and this project, which is grayed out, was 18 hours, and then you just invoice for that. This is what like a invoice would look like from QuickBooks. It's kind of nice. They let you put a little logo up there, and everything's just laid out real good. And that's the end of the presentation on freelance. Yeah, I hope that wasn't too much info or like too dry. It can be a little bit dry talking about businessy stuff.
No, that was great. We have a couple of questions here for you. Let me read it out. But thanks for that. That was awesome. Back to your animation tests. Yogesh asks, how much time did Method Studios give you to finish that horse test? And how you utilized it. Is that a add-on question?
Time?
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends studio by studio. At Method, there was a lot of time, especially as like a new guy coming in. They gave me a lot of time to adjust, which was good and bad. I got quite bored. Like just doing tests all day, it can be like pretty draining. So with the horse test, I spent weeks on this, man. Just because there was very little to do on whatever movies that I'd been launched on, or the shots that were given to other artists, or they were still waiting for me to refine like how I worked on the horse or whatever it was. Like there was plenty of time to do tests. And everyone did tests. It wasn't like the best artists didn't do tests. Everyone had a shot and spent a lot of time prior to any movie starting on making the test look good. And they would do loads of them. I think I did like 8 chicken tests. This is like one of 3 horse tests that I did. The biped, I think I only did 2. But yeah, I spent loads of time just refining tests. Weeks.
Were those animations used? Were they chucked in a library for later?
Some of them were, yeah, and some of them were chucked in a library as well, yeah. There was a couple of chicken tests that ended up in the movies.
Yep.
One of them ended up in, I don't know if I can talk about it. There was Peter Rabbit, though, which has some chickens in it. And I don't think any of the horse stuff I did was used. Maybe there was another one I did which had like a horse walk. They might have put that in the library, but yeah. It depends. Sometimes they have use for it. Sometimes it's just for your own personal knowledge gain.
Yeah. Inteo asks, which industry do you prefer and why? Because I think he's looking to get into games, and you've done both games and films. So
it's kind of up to how you feel about different things and where you are. So there's lots of like variables. But for me personally, I think I prefer games. Movies is really great if you want to work on exciting projects, like big projects. And like we were talking about last night, Eddie, like if you've got something in mind and you're already an established animator and you can sort of just aim in the direction of the movie or the project that you want to work on, then that's really useful. And that's really cool that as an artist or as an animator, you can kind of just aim your sort of talent cannon and just like shoot in the direction of the cool thing you want to work on. Like that's kind of I think that's one of the best things about working in movies. And then you get like this sort of wealth of things that you've worked on that you're proud of. Whereas games, I feel like it's a little bit less, like they try more to have you at the studio for longer. Like their attempt at job security is a little bit more, like they want to try to keep you around. At least that's what I found. maybe it's got something to do with the Melbourne game scene and the Melbourne film scene. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience here, but it does seem like they're higher on and off the movies a lot between Luma and Method, and in games, in my experience, they try to keep you around for longer. Like at my current employer, they're like, it's a year contract, but I'm technically full time, so they're expecting to continue. Like they're not expecting it to finish after the year, so yeah, it's longer. Whereas Method, it was like 6 months. Do you want to keep working? Like it's just sort of more open. And I'm sure other people have had shorter contracts than that in film as well. Like I've heard like 2-3 months.
Yeah.
It's just whatever the project needs.
Yeah, and at which stage as well. But do you actually like working on games? Like
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like both, dude. Like there's pluses and minuses. Like when I was working at Method, making some of these tests was really enjoyable. It was like, man, now I got the time to like hone my skills. And then when I was launched on movies, like when I was working on Peter Rabbit, I had a really great time. It was like these creatures have a lot of personality. I'm having fun. And then there was like not so great times as well, where it was like sometimes in Jumanji where like there's like a big blimp floating through the air. It's like that's the whole animation. And you're like, oh man, anyone could have done this. So there's like pluses and minuses.
For sure, yeah.
In games, it's like it's a bit repetitive, so I find that like every game needs like an idle, like every game needs a run cycle and a walk cycle and an attack and a block. And then like once you do one, inevitably there's like multiple characters in the game, so they all need that animation. So sometimes they retarget, and sometimes you do bespoke animation. Like it's just there's a lot of rinse and repeat in games, so that can get a little bit soul destroying.
Yeah.
But then there's like cinematics as well, so you kind of aim for one or the other, or both, depending on where you want to work. Like I know that some studios trade between their cinematics team and the gameplay team, or they jump back and forth.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Francisco asked, do you prefer the straight ahead method when animating, or does it is it different with every shot?
A bit of column A and column B. I think I prefer straight ahead these days. Like as long as I've got a clear idea in my head of what I want to do, I might like set some poses if I'm really feeling diligent, but usually I can see it in my eye, in my head, in my brain space, and then it's just a matter of like putting it on the scene.
Oh wait, I think I mixed that. I mixed two questions apparently.
That's alright.
So how you utilized it was an add-on to the question I just asked you. I think that's what
utilize one versus the other.
Yeah, how you utilize straight ahead and non straight ahead, I guess, method of animating.
Yeah. Every animator is different. I'm sort of a mix of Eddie and probably other people. Like when I'm doing creatures, it tends to be more straight ahead, or layered, a bit layered. Like I'll usually get the main poses and shapes in, and then just like layer limbs and overlap on top of that. Bipeds, I tend to spend a bit more time with the posing. I hardly ever use blocked or stepped. But yeah, it's just like whatever the need is, you know. Like with this dragon one, I was more focused on the general motion in the beginning, so I used the cube. Whereas with the Samus one, it was just like I had the idea in my mind, so I just like went ahead and did it. I didn't need to do any like blocking or anything like that. It was just like straight through. And then like once you get like the main beats built out, you know, like this beat, that beat, that beat, that beat, you just like apply animation to it, you know, like you do all of the overlap and the the body mechanics that you learn, that you kind of draw on, you know. And if there's anything that like jumps out to you, you kind of build on it from there. Like there's like a smear here or whatever, you know, like you kind of look for things. And I think there's one right here as well.
How'd you do the smear?
Yeah, there's one there as well. That's just the mesh.
Yeah.
It's really lazy again. It's just the verts. I think I duplicated the gun mesh and then like grab the verts and just move them out, like self-select.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how we did it on Spider-Verse. It's the same thing. Duplicate a mesh, and just smear it. Just pull it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be complicated too. Like maybe there's rigs that have like the ability to like set the spacing of the duplicate limbs or whatever. But yeah, if you're only seeing it for like a frame, which most of the time you are, it doesn't have to be crazy.
Yeah.
Were you on Spider-Verse, Eddie?
Yeah, I was.
Hell yeah, man. That's a great movie.
Yeah. Turned out awesome.
Yeah, it turned out really good. What was the we're getting a little bit off topic, but I'm curious to know about like how the lines on the face worked. Were they just like objects, or could you draw them?
Oh man, from memory, they were kind of just separate rigs, so you can adjust like the thickness and everything, like the sharpness of the corners. So they're like actual separate rigs in itself, and you can just kind of place it, pretty much at your own discretion, and you put like the lines over the nose and wrinkles wherever, around the eyes, wherever they're happening, and then you kind of just submit that into dailies and see if it works, see if it's consistent with the sequence and everything. So really you're designing the shot, including the lines, the smear frames, action lines, it's all the same. They're separate rigs, and then you just design the shot, like you just exaggerate it and then just submit it and see if it fits. But
that's another difference actually between games and movies is your shot is in context, right? So your shot is like next to two other shots, and maybe those other two shots aren't yours, so you need to have an idea of what the previous action was, and then not double up on it, and then also lead into the following shot. So that's something that you never think about in games. Like the only thing you're thinking about in games is like, how does this blend between actions? Like does idle move into walk correctly and out of walk, and does it fit into the system of animation? So it's you're sort of still thinking about like linking things, but in less of a story beat kind of way, more of like a technical way, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Keiko asks, so it's a technical question for Maya. She's curious what kind of script or animation tools helped you in your freelance animation work, and please introduce some of them.
Oh, cool. I didn't really use any crazy like freelancing. I don't know what you would use. I mostly just use Animbot and Rapid Rig for when I needed to rig stuff. Those were the two main ones. I don't know. Let me just open up Maya real quick and see what's up there. I honestly don't know. The scripts kind of just stack up over time, and you kind of lose track of them sometimes. But I'll see if looking at it jogs my memory.
I think Animbot kind of brings all of that stuff together for animators. So the ones that we use the most.
Yeah, it's good. Animbot is good. It depends. Like sometimes, like these different studios won't want to use it though. Like at Method, they only started using it right before I left, even though like I've been using it a lot. So you have to kind of be able to adapt a little bit, not get too like locked into using specific scripts.
Exactly.
Don't you use Studio Library? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I do. I love Studio Library. That's a good one. Yeah. At Method, they have their own version of Studio Library, very different version, but and more powerful. But it was heavier, so it was like slower to use. What else have I got here? A lot of it's built into Maya that I just put on the shelf, like make a locator or make a circle. Is my internet going alright, or is it dropping out a little?
You're fine, yeah. You sound...
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I just got a little message pop up. But yeah, mostly EB Labs I use sometimes to put stuff in world space, back in the local space. Yeah,
That's
that's a good one.
it's my mate's tools, Eric.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. It's good shit. It's good stuff. Yeah, I don't tend to mess around with scripts too much though. Mostly just hand and butt.
So Studio
And then even
Library
hand and butt,
for
I don't
saving
install.
animation. Studio Library, is that for saving animation?
Yeah, yeah. It's just a pose saver. I don't know if I can open it because it might have sensitive materials in there, but the yeah, it's
That's
just
fine.
like it lets you save basically like curve names and locations, and then also curve names and locations through time.
Mm-hmm.
Very very simple but quite powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Use it a lot in games. It's really good. Like if you need to get your idle pose back onto the rig really quick, or like a specific hand pose.
Yeah.
It's good.
Hand poses. A hand pose library
even, like,
is super handy.
you can like mix different poses, and you can even
Yeah, it's like a
make
slider.
complete like animation and stuff like that. It's really useful.
Yeah, it's a game changer, that one. Overlapper is a new script I use, which is great. It says Mark. Is Overlapper like one of those auto overlap things where it like does a physics bake with like a spring or like a curve? I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to check it out. There's also Richard Lico's new series coming out soon. He's got like a tutorial series, which I have a feeling is going to be very similar to the Overlapper stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's all going to be like constraint-based baking, space-based baking.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be like putting locators on things, baking it, and offsetting it.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
I don't use too many different tools. Kind of just base Maya. I think that's just like a safe way to go as well. Like if you can use Maya out of the box to get the job done, then
It's true.
you're all clear.
Yeah, that's it. So if anyone else doesn't have any more questions, we're gonna let Joe
I actually have
go.
one.
Okay, go ahead.
Is what does the studios usually say about like putting your stuff in the reel? Do they say like you need to do a private one or you can only show it to the like interviews? Or do they just say straight up like no, you can't use it in the reel?
Yeah, in my experience, it depends where you go. So in games, tends to be, at least in my experience, wait until the games come out. Like you don't want to be putting any sensitive, unseen animations out in the world before the game is being seen by everyone. Whereas in film, they were way more strict. It was like I had to really fight quite hard to get the tests out of the building, to get these the horses and this biped out. There was like loads of other tests that I had, and then initially they were like, you can't take anything out. So yeah, it depends where you go. But with film, it's like at Method they said after the film comes to DVD or Blu-ray, then they send you the materials that you worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same in your experience, Eddie?
Yep, pretty much. But a lot of times I just had to source my own. But yeah, wait for it to be on DVD to use your shots. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Bash asked
It's
if there's any good onion skinning tools that you've come across.
There probably is.
Yeah,
I think I've got one up there. I think I use one, but I don't use it very often. But Ghost.
Actually, yeah. There is. There's BH Ghost ghosting tools.
BH Ghost. That's probably what that is. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Still works.
So that's the one I get everyone to use. That's Brian's. Yeah, that one's really good. It's got tracking points as well as ghosting. So it creates an outline of the character, and you can, create the number of frames you want to ghost. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't use ghosting. I do track arcs, but I don't ghost.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah.
It just gets heavy, right? I just duplicate the mesh as well.
Makes sense.
I find duplicating the mesh a low version, or even like duplicating, heads or chest, whatever. It's way quicker than an actual outline ghost. It's a bit heavy.
Yeah. It's heavy and it's like kind of distracting. Like I definitely just for the most part, and this is probably bad, but I feel like I've trained myself to just like see the spacing. You know, if you step through it, you get a sense of the spacing anyway.
No, I think that's
another thing you can,
important to have.
Right. Yeah, just being able to see it helps. I mean, obviously, like you're a human, so like you can't see everything, but like as you practice and get better, like you get better at it. Like it definitely improves. Another thing that I've been told to do, and that I do sometimes, is if you've got a shot and something's not quite working, you can parent like a primitive, like a cube, and color the different sides different colors to like the chest or the hip, and then you can get a real sense of like the shape. So you can see, like, say the left-hand side is green as it rotates towards camera. You can see like whether or not you're getting too much green too fast, or like flickers, or you just like see things way easier just because it's just a cube. That's really useful.
Cool.
Maybe someone could write a tool that does that. Probably already exists. A tool that just like makes it multicolored cube and then parents it to whatever you've got selected. It'd be pretty easy to make.
Yeah.
And then you can see the motion way better.
Yeah.
If it's nice and simple like that.
Yeah. But I agree. I think you should be able to train yourself to see arcs and spacing before you actually track it. So I like to block that in by eye, all my arcs, spacing, whatever, as best as you can. And over time, you're just going to get, pretty decent at it. Just helps you down the road.
Yeah. It's definitely like a little extra thing, It's like if I'm seeing some spacing or seeing an arc that isn't quite right, then maybe I'll use a tool to like make sure that it is. But yeah, normally I just use my eye, my eyeball.
That's it. We'll probably let you go at this point.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think unless anyone else has one last one. I have one last question for you. It's pretty much what I ask everyone. It's if you could visit yourself, when you're first starting out, and a lot of these animators here are in the same position of trying to get in or get into film or make a transition. Do you have any advice for them?
Oh man, if I could go back and talk to myself as a kid.
Yeah.
Or like as I was just getting started.
From what you've learnt up until now.
Yeah, it would probably be don't panic. Just don't panic. It's probably going to be all right. You don't have to. Like I'm in this weird place, right? Like I feel like you need to really work quite hard to stand out and get to a level where you're able to be hired in both film and games. I think there's a definite skill level that you need to get to, and it's difficult to get there. But at the same time, it shouldn't come at the cost of everything, Like you should still be able to have like a social life and a little bit of a life behind animation. Like there's that famous, I don't know how famous it is, but there's that instance of Hayao Miyazaki talking to one of his animators and trying to tell him like how like a cat moves or something like that. And this person has just been animating their entire life. They've never had a cat. They've never like been in the wild to see a cat. Like they've just animated, so they don't know, right? If you don't have a life, you can't animate. Like it's the illusion of life, so you should be able to have one to, make that illusion happen. So that's kind of the main takeaway. There's a lot of people out there that really do push themselves over the limit, and they're incredible animators. And I think it's okay to strive for something like that, but just know that at the top, there's just more. You just keep going. There's nothing at the top. You just keep going. It's endless. So keep that in mind. Try not to like overdo it because you'll hurt yourself. Build up to it, and yeah. As for students and people looking to get into games and film, definitely try to look at your work objectively. I think there's a lot of people out there that feel like they're ready, but they're really not. So take, say you're trying to get into film, take the most recent like Transformers movie or like Godzilla or get King Kong, take your creature shot and put it next to one of those shots and see how it feels. Not looking at all of the visual effects and lighting and craziness, try and just look at the animation and see, does it fit? Am I at that standard? If they took my shot and rendered and lit it, would it be that good? And just ask yourself honestly, and then usually the answer is no, and that's okay. But you need to be able to get as close as you can. Same with games, like put your stuff next to like a game animator's reel and see how it stacks up. Does it stack up? Are you close? helps you get close as possible so that they can slot you into production really easily. Obviously they have, when they're hiring people, they're not expecting you to be the best. That's impossible. But they are expecting you to have some level of competency. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. So just have balance and work hard at the same time.
Balance, but work hard.
Yeah, that's it.
Hit that balance.
All right, mate. Thanks for your time today. That was awesome. And thanks to everyone else as well for attending. So I'm going to chuck this online later and check it out. But yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool, man. Go and feed that cat. That cat's now